Okay, folks, welcome to this week's episode of Terrier Talk, where we are deciding what's more important. Is it the training of your dog or the biological fulfillment of your dog? Okay, when it comes to, anything like getting over behaviour problems or just purely and simply having a happy, satisfied family pet. Now, what do we mean by both of these things? Training is basically teaching a dog to do something, okay? So, like, from as simple as, when you first get your puppy, everybody teaches them to do a sit. When they get their foot on the floor, or they get their bum on the floor, for the first time, you go, oh, well done, sit, and you give them a reward for it, okay? Up to and including, teaching a dog to, search for drugs in an airport, okay? That's all training. They're the things that we teach them in order to essentially control their behaviour to a certain extent, yeah? And then we've got the biological fulfillment side of it. And these are the things that we do with our dogs that give them outlets for their energy, for their natural drives, remembering that we've genetically manipulated these dogs for years and years and years to perform certain tasks, and that really those tasks are now like driven and built into them, and they are part of like the profile of that dog's needs on a day-to-day basis, really. And what can we do when we've taken on these dogs like this, and then we're trying to sort of shoehorn them into our pet dog lifestyle, So which one is more important? Like, if I was going to do one or the other, which one would I concentrate on? And how do we kind of get the two of them working together in order to have a kind of happy, fulfilled family pet, which is, if you're listening to this, what you're really looking for, ultimately, I would imagine. So I'm going to come down on the side of that if I had to pick one and all I had time to do was put time into fulfillment or time into training, then I would 100% put my time into fulfillment, okay? Like, if I had to pick one or the other. Or let's say I'm going to bias my, my day towards more than the other. So the reason for that is that the majority of behaviour problems, and really, let's be honest, what we're talking about with a pet dog is behaviour, not training. Okay, and again, these are the little kind of like nuances which might seem kind of silly, but when you actually wrap your head around it, you're like, oh, right, okay, I now see why the training that I've been doing with my dog has been failing, okay? Because I haven't really been taking into account behaviour, and I haven't really been taking into account this kind of like biological fulfillment piece, okay? So I'm going to, put myself out there and say that biological fulfillment is the most important thing that you can do with your pet dog, okay? Now, of course, we're here talking terriers specifically. So what is biological fulfillment going to look like? So for the most part, we're looking at exercise, okay, which is genuinely really important. And one of the biggest things that I see from the dogs that come to me for training, clients calling me up, and when I go through that first call with them and we're going through lifestyle and I'm asking all the questions about, what does your dog's day look like on a day-to-day basis? The biggest thing that usually kind of flags up in my mind is that dog is probably fundamentally under-exercised. Now, I genuinely think it's quite hard in a modern 9-to-5 working job to give a dog that needs it the amount of exercise that it needs. Now, some of you will have terriers that are fairly chill, okay, and they get away with having less exercise. But the reason why the ones of you who are listening to this with a terrier that has behaviour problems is because you've got one that's still got a very strong genetic drive, okay, and those genetic drives have become the behaviour problems that you're now facing. And one of the biggest things that dog will need and that you will be able to help yourself out massively by providing is good exercise. And it isn't just running around like a crazy thing. It's kind of like low level, steady, covering distance and just being out and getting exercise. Half an hour around the block in the morning and half an hour around the block in the evening is not enough, okay? It's not enough physical movement. It's not enough of the dog just being able to use their body and be out, right? And if you can't give your dog enough physical exercise, yes, we can work around it to a certain extent, and we can shoehorn in some mental exercise, and we can kind of do a bit of this and a bit of frustration relief, and we can do play, and we can do all those kinds of things. But really, for the steadiest, calmest, most chill pet family dog, in my opinion, the best thing you can do give them is good quality exercise. And that can look like, 2 to 3 hours a day for a very fit, strong, drivey, young terrier. And I think that's massively underestimated in these dogs that have huge behaviour problems. And it might be that if it's within your means, you're employing people to come and to help you with that, especially in the short term when you're trying to sort out behaviour problems. I know that's not achievable for everyone, but, as a gold standard, that's really what I would be looking to do. Then you're looking at the biological fulfilment piece. Now, terriers really, if you can get them out into environments that are suitable and they are safe in those environments, terriers will fulfill themselves to a certain extent, because really what they are is hunting dogs. They're hunting dogs, and for me, the absolute key to a terrier is that they get the chance to behave independently, okay? More than they get directed activity. It's they have time to make their own decisions and do their own thing and go off, sniffing and doing. And I'm not saying that you need to let your dog go off hunting for hours and then miles away from you. All of this can be, again, I'm going to use the word training, but you can do training to make sure that this kind of happens within a sensible distance of you. But if you can get out into a nice woodland for 2 hours a day, potentially a bit more if you can manage it, your terrier will, for the most part, fulfill themselves. All you really need is good recall. And once you have that, your dog will go out, they'll sniff, they'll have fun, they'll dig, they'll do all the things that a terrier needs to do on a day-to-day basis, and you just chuck in a little bit of tug play here and there, and you're pretty much golden. That's one of the beauties of having a terrier, is that independence is their fulfillment in many ways. And so a nice, lots of nice outdoor walks in stimulating environments is going to tick those boxes for you. If you live somewhere where you cannot provide that, just probably because of your location and circumstances, and your day-to-day looks urban, then you're looking to having to provide that fulfillment some other way. And the key things, again, for a terrier are going to be an outlet for their kind of slightly aggressive tendencies. So are we playing with them? Are we giving them that higher adrenaline, fun that they're looking for? I'm going to use the word fun, but that's how we look at it. And then I am looking then also to give them things like digging if I can, if they don't get to do that. And also, again, there's opportunities to make independent decisions and to work independently. And for me, scent work's an absolutely brilliant way to do that. So can I provide this dog with 20 minutes worth of scent work? Can I go out in my garden and teach them an indication and get them, hunting out things, or even as simple as getting them hunting out a bit of food every day. It doesn't have to be mega complicated. And then if you are doing any of those things over and above that good physical exercise where they've got independence to make their choices, you should at least fundamentally have a dog that's fulfilled. And then if you have any behaviour problems that you need to sort out, so something that's happened over time, a habit that's formed, something that's, your dog's been attacked, or some sort of trauma that's happened, or something that's carried over from puppyhood or adolescence that you've not managed to sort. As long as you've got that fundamental fulfillment through the behaviour, a tiny bit of training on top should really help you out, What happens is, unfortunately, people go straight in for the training because in their heads that's what they need to do. I need to train this dog, train. And really they're pushing custard up a hill because they're just not getting the fulfillment. So even if you do loads and loads of training and you say to somebody, right, you can use a person example. You can say, you could train me to do, maths, right? I could learn, I'm just thinking I'm rubbish at maths, right? I could learn, I could sit down and try really hard and put the effort in, and I could learn to get better at maths. But then if you then put that maths in front of me when I haven't had any sleep and I haven't eaten and I haven't, done the things I need to do in a day, and my mental health is really poor because I've been cooped up in a house for 6 weeks. We've all been there. Let's remember COVID, and I'm going to fail at that maths, even though in theory I know how to do it. Okay, so really, while both are massively important, the training and the biological fulfillment, to me, there's very little point in doing that training until you've done the biological fulfillment. And you'll find if you work with me as a trainer or you come on the group coaching, we spend a lot of time initially working on that. Okay, so we really tinker lifestyle and we work on making sure that the biological fulfillment is as good as we can get it for you, whether I'm working with you personally or in a group situation. and we tinker and we tweak, and people are like, wow, my relationship with my dog's so much better, and they're just so much calmer now, and all this kind of stuff, and those kind of like leaps and bounds of behavior improvement start to come, and then we're going to give the dog skills and like so training now, and then we're going to use that little bit of training just to help them fit in a bit better in the lifestyle that we need them to fit into, because I mean ultimately they weren't bred for it, they weren't born for it. They have no obligation to behave the way that we want them to behave. Okay, so you really need to be signing a contract with your dog, and that contract is, I will give you the biological fulfillment that you need, and in return I'm going to ask you for some bits of behaviour, and hopefully you will perform those for me, but based on the fact that I've given you the stuff that you need. So yeah, that's how I work as a trainer, and that I think you find most good trainers will agree with me. And if you're currently training, like you're thinking, God, I've got this dog with this problem, and you've watched some Instagram clips and you've thought, all right, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this, and it's not working. Okay, this is why. And you really need to look at that biological fulfillment piece. So that's my little roundup of this week's Terrier Talk, and hopefully it's given you some things to think about, a little bit of insight. And as always, if you want to work with me, whether that's group coaching, one-to-one, you can get hold of me through any of the normal means. Jump on the website, email, get me on Instagram or TikTok or one of those places, or give me a good old-fashioned phone call. I still take those. And I'll hopefully see you for the next episode.